Hi guys, so this is section C2, self-confidence, and we're looking at self-efficacy, which is a specific type of self-confidence. So in the last video we talked about state self-confidence and your level of confidence in one situation to another situation. It can change and it can fluctuate. So self-efficacy is your belief in a specific situation, and Bandura has given it a special name, and he's a researcher. Excuse me. So individuals' expectation of success in a specific situation is called self-efficacy. So I put here, where self-confidence is a global aspect and refers to all or most situations, self-efficacy is very much a singular thing, looking at a specific situation. So, sorry. Why is it important to have self-efficacy? Well, if you've got high levels of self-efficacy, believe in yourself, in certain situations, you're going to have increased task persistence, so you're going to work harder at something despite setbacks. And you'll have better level of cohesion with the group and the athletes and the coach to try and achieve your goals. So you'll work with them better. So when they give you feedback, whether it be criticism, so negative feedback, you will see it as a positive, you'll see it as something to work on. If you don't have high levels of self-efficacy, you tend to see this criticism as a bit of a slight on you, and you're like, oh, all right, well, and it can make you shut down, it can make you stop working hard. So if you've got confidence about yourself and someone says, look, you are good, you can do this, but I have noticed that this goes wrong, maybe you need to work on that, you don't see that as a negative thing. You're like, oh, all right, thanks, I really appreciate that, and then you go off and work on it. So self-confidence can help you work on feedback, make you more resilient. It's also proved that self-efficacy, or an increase, or high levels of self-efficacy, increases the perception of ability and consequently your performance. So this is going back to your last video, that if you think you can, you can. So if you have high levels of self-efficacy, you believe in yourself, then you also believe in your ability to overcome things. So if, let's say, you get a new coach or a different coach, you do a workshop and they say, right, we're just going to slightly tweak this skill and do it like this. Some people might be like, oh, no, I don't think I want to do that. But someone with high levels of self-efficacy will think, yeah, I can do that. I can transfer my ability across, my skill across, not a problem. So Bandura is the researcher, and he looked into self-efficacy, and he looked at trying to improve self-efficacy from a coach's point of view. So said, right, I've highlighted these 4 areas that will improve somebody's expectation of success, which he called efficacy expectations. So your expectation that you will achieve something. And he said, if you can get those to be high, then your performance will be higher at the end. So this is it in a nutshell, and I have put a warning on there. These are just very, very brief notes, so the next slide will go in more detail. But he suggested there's 4 factors that will affect self-efficacy, and these can be taken as a negative or a positive to increase efficacy or reduce it. So past performance accomplishments, the most important one. And if you've had good past experiences, you're going to have high self-efficacy in a nutshell. Vicarious experience means you're watching others and you're copying them. Verbal persuasion means that you're being talked into something. So the coach is trying to persuade you to do something or bigging you up and encouraging you. And emotional arousal. So all those somatic and cognitive, all the somatic and cognitive stress responses that you get, the high heart rate and the sweating and things like that, that you see those as actually being ready for action, that you see them as a positive, and that will improve self-efficacy as well. So they are really the basic descriptions. So if we move on. Okay, in this slide I have gone into a lot more detail on those 4 factors and how they can affect self-efficacy. So we'll start up here. Bandura's theory that these 4 factors can encourage self-efficacy are applied because research has actually gone into this and has proved that increasing self-efficacy will improve performance. Therefore, your perception of your ability and your ability to cope with the task, if it's positive, your performance will be better. It's a reciprocal relationship, or what we call a reciprocal relationship, between accomplishments in performance and self-efficacy. So if we go across here, this is what I mean by it. If your performance is successful, then you are more likely to have success. And if you're more likely to have success, you're more likely to perform well. If you fail, it will decrease your self-efficacy and you're likely to fail in the future, and it'll keep going round for your next match. Oh, you fail again. Oh, I'm less likely to do it. I can't do it. And so it's a cycle that you need to break if your athlete is in this cycle, and you need to use Bandura's 4 factors to try and influence somebody's self-efficacy to get them into this cycle, the successful cycle, because there is this reciprocal relationship between what you're feeling, what you're thinking, your level of self-efficacy, and what actually happens. That's where the relationship comes in. So this is Bandura's theory, and we'll look at past performance accomplishments first of all. This is my man lifting a massive tyre, and I've done that because it's showing that this is the strongest element of Bandura's theory. So he says, basically, if you could only do one, this is it. This has the most influence on people's self-confidence. It's the strongest aspect of his theory. And it's called past performance accomplishments. And it basically means that things that you have done in the past, if you have accomplished things in the past, you've been successful, then your self-efficacy will be high. If you have done training sessions for your athletes and they've failed at something every single week because you've set the task too hard for them, then they will start to believe that they can't do it, they're not good enough, and their ability isn't good enough, and they'll have low levels of self-efficacy, which can be completely demoralising and stop somebody performing. So it's really important to make sure that people have achievable goals that they can perform in, that make them feel worthy, that give them self-worth, because they think, oh, this is hard, but I have managed to do it. Because there's no point achieving something if it's not challenging anyway, because it's easy. So there's no pride attached with that. So past performance accomplishments. His advice is to remove any self-doubt that people might have and get them from this reciprocal relationship to this one. So you need to remove people's feelings of, oh, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that, or I don't think I can do that. Any new skills that you're taught should be done in a challenging way, but they have to be achievable. So it's a level of challenge that's just beyond where the person's level of skill is at the moment. So if they can catch whilst on the run in netball, then your next level would be to catch and then pass the ball into a different direction. It wouldn't be to turn in the air and pass in a different direction. So you'd have to build it up slowly. What happens if an athlete fails repeatedly? I've mentioned this already. It's a decrease in self-efficacy, which means they won't try very hard. This is task persistence. They won't put much effort into it, and they'll have a negative mindset, and they will approach not just that challenge, but they'll start approaching other challenges in training sessions with, I can't do it. Yeah, I can't do that. I've never been good at that. Never been able to do that at all. And they close off, and then it's very, very difficult to train people. So set them off with positive accomplishments when you first start coaching people, and it should help their self-efficacy to grow. That's the strongest element, has the biggest influence. So the next one then is vicarious experience. This means watching people. It means watching and learning from them. And Bandura has said it only really works if you're watching someone that you perceive to be of a similar ability to you. So it's helpful if they're the same gender, if they are roughly the same age and have roughly the same experience. So if you were standing next to the trampoline and you saw a Loughborough student come in and we said, oh, she's on the trampoline display team. And she came in, she did a Barani, which is a front summy with a straight body with a half twist on it as well. Quite tricky move. If you saw that being done by her, so she's been trained at Loughborough, you wouldn't necessarily think of copying her, because you think, well, she's had loads of training, she's probably been practicing for years on that, they probably have different trampolines, they'll have different support mechanisms for her when she's first starting, so it wouldn't occur to you to think, oh yeah, I could have a go at that. However, if you saw someone else in the class, I don't know why, but Brad Clues has sprung to mind, doing a Barani, and from the other group, let's say we managed to get Cal to do a Barani, and you guys are watching. So he's the same age as you, he might have less sort of experience on the trampoline than some of the girls, because I think we do it more at Key Stage 3 than the boys, but I'm not sure. But you've got similar sort of ability, and you think, well, if he can do it, I could probably have a go at that as well. I'll give it a try. So vicarious experience, watching and learning from others, works, but works more effectively if the person is of similar ability than you, or at least you perceive them to be of a similar ability, and it is just your perception, and that they should have roughly the same experience and knowledge and things like that. So it's really useful, vicarious experience, watching others, even if it's on a video. It doesn't have to be a live performance, but if it first of all can be accompanied with verbal persuasion, it's very useful. But if it can be useful when you're trying new skills for the first time, like a somersault. But it can be used for old skills as well. But it's usually when you're trying to develop the skill and trying to encourage somebody to try something new and they're a bit nervous about it. So verbal persuasion obviously goes hand in hand with vicarious experience. And this is persuasive techniques to encourage somebody to do something. So to try a new skill, or to refine the old skill, or to perhaps adapt it to do it in a different way. And again, this encouragement and reinforcement can come from any support network, but it can be a coach. But whoever it is, the person doing the talking needs to be influential. And to be influential, the person doing the listening needs to have them in high regard, needs to feel that they're knowledgeable, needs to feel that they've had an impact on other people, so it would be worth their while to listen to them. So they see them as a role model, I suppose, is really what I'm saying, and they are significant. And if they are, then they're more likely to listen to them. So his last part, the fourth aspect of it, the fourth factor, is emotional arousal or emotional states. And this is encouraging the participants to think of their somatic and cognitive stress response. So their heart rate increase, their breathing rate increase, the sweating, the shaking, the feeling sick, the thoughts of worry and apprehension. Seeing those as actually a positive. So you read it and think, oh, I am a bit nervous, but this is all good because it means I care about it. It means I really want to do well. My heart rate's absolutely pounding. But that's okay, because that means that I've got blood pumping around my body, I'll be fast, I'm ready for it. So you train somebody to think of all of these stress responses as actually a positive thing. And that can improve self-confidence because they feel that they're going into it with a high level of preparation. And if we think back to Veely's model, that was a big thing, the mental and the physical preparation in building for self-confidence. So it's similar. However, all the factors will be put together. You'd use all of them if you were a coach to increase self-efficacy if they're applied properly. If they're not applied properly, they can have detrimental effects on self-efficacy. So if they've been ineffectively applied, an athlete may have a decrease in self-efficacy and all the detrimental effects associated with it. So let's say that you try and set past performance, or you try and give them past performance accomplishments, but they only achieve half of them. It's going to lower their self-efficacy. If you're using vicarious experience, so that's the copying and the watching, but you use somebody who is much better than them, and then when they try doing it, they do it wrong and possibly even injure themselves. Okay, this is the last part, C3, and self-esteem and its impact. So this is different from efficacy. So self-esteem is what we think of ourselves in terms of our self-worth and personal value. So it's a bit more of a global concept than self-efficacy. And high self-efficacy means that you are less affected by feelings. So you have what's called emotional stability, which basically means you're resilient to things. So if you're practicing something, you're training for something, and it goes wrong, or you get criticism from other people, or you get beaten by other people, you're affected less by the emotional reaction that you will get. So you'll feel disappointed, but you'll probably see that as a positive thing, and you'll focus more on what you can do in training to improve that weakness, as opposed to thinking, oh God, I got beaten, I'm not good enough. So self-esteem, things like I am an awesome player, I'm the best. And it's what you think of yourself, your self-worth. Self-concept is what you feel about yourself across different roles. So you look at the physical self, your level of skill and ability, your appearance, which speaks for itself, your social self, so it's how much you value yourself in terms of your relationships with family and friends, and your academic self, so how much you value your knowledge, your subject knowledge. Impact on self-esteem means that low self-efficacy and low self-confidence will low self-esteem and low self-confidence will increase state anxiety. So that will increase your levels of shaking, feeling sick, muscle tension, and it will decrease your performance because you won't be able to reach for the ball, your coordination will be off, and you'll look more like a novice performer. However, if self-esteem is high and you therefore have a reduced level of emotional response to the feelings, it means you're more resilient, which means when you are given criticism that you will just carry on anyway and you'll train harder to beat that. And that's the last slide. That's C2 and C3.